Salutations! Welcome to another episode of Foxx Plays KSP, the 365-day challenge, round 2. So, today, our mission is going to be kind of same but different. We're going to put up another Kom-Net. And, KBN1 it's fine. It's not very robust, but it's suiting our purposes for now, but we need to very quickly look towards the future. So, with this mission, we're looking not just to the future, but to the far future. And we're actually going to set up a Kom-Net that will give us not 100% uptime, but reasonably good coverage for moon missions, should we choose to embark on such a foolish thing. So, I think without further ado, I'll hop over to the launch pad and we'll get started. Alrighty, and it's a big one. So we've got essentially a zenith in the middle with two extra zeniths, kinda, strapped to the sides. So it's a monster of a lift vehicle. So we're gonna throttle up, get our SAS on. I'm just gonna double check. Yep, I want to pitch up. Alright. Sorry for the night launch, but the moon has aligned. So we want it to be more or less there, because if we were launching to the moon, we'd want it to be there. But instead, well, I'll explain on the ascent. Anyway, we're ready for launch, and go. Oh yeah! Plenty of thrust on this puppy. We got, what is it? Yeah, over two, actually, we're, wow. That is some crazy acceleration. I'm actually going to dial it down a little bit. Pitch over kind of aggressively. Alright, so before we get too far into where this Kom-Net is going, I want to just kind of clarify something that a lot of people ask, I have asked, and there is a simple answer, but there's a more complicated answer. So the question is, are there Lagrange points in KSP? Short answer, no. Or Lagrange points, you ask. Lagrange points are basically points in space that interact gravitationally with multiple... Just having a staging event. But yeah, they're points in space which are affected gravitationally by various bodies, and it's the point where the gravitational attraction is equal. Doesn't sound quite correct. Sorry, it's quite late. My brain is failing me. But that's the basic idea. And what makes Lagrange points interesting is that they are places where you can get something that looks and operates very similar to an orbit, but it's not around any actual body. There's not actually anything there for it to orbit, but it orbits. And Lagrange points are useful for all sorts of things. But the trouble is they require n-body gravitation. They need more than just a two-body system. So in KSP, it really only factors in the vessel and the planet it's orbiting. So unless you're in something else's sphere of influence, so unless you move to the moon's sphere of influence, the moon has zero gravity. As far as this vessel is concerned, in its reference frame, the moon's gravity is zero. Which is a bit silly, but... And I think we have, we're off a bit, because we'll get there and move, well, yeah, it's not perfect, but we'll work with it. Anyway, back to Lagrange points. So yeah, basically, KSP would need to be calculating Kerbin's gravity and its effect on the vessel, and the moon's gravity and its effect on the vessel, and Minmus and Kerbal and Eve and all. You need to be calculating all this gravity, and it just doesn't do that. But so Lagrange points don't exist in KSP because they exist as a result of lots of different bodies having these big gravity wells, but and them interacting. But because the gravitational influence of that planet is zero or that moon is zero unless you're in its sphere of influence, I'm just gonna perform some maneuvers. What was I saying? Right. So because the gravitational influence is zero, if I were to put a craft on exactly the same orbit as the moon, the craft and the moon, as long as the craft is outside the moon's sphere of influence, the craft and the moon will not change distance. Like, the distance between them will not change. And so, essentially, the way this manifests, this means for us, is that there are going to be people who are going to just scream and yell and shout and be mean that, that it's not actually a Lagrange point. But for the practical person, for someone who wants something like a Lagrange point because it will give them interesting opportunities, it's all functionally a Lagrange point. As long as you're on the same orbit as the moon, you get all the benefits, essentially, of Lagrange points. And yes, I understand that it's not. I get it. You're right, technically. You are technically correct, the best kind of correct. But there are other kinds of correct. So, right. So, what we're going to do... Right, I'm actually going to go into a little bit more about... Right, so there are... In any system where Lagrange points are generated, there are 5 Lagrange points. They are they are referred to as L for Lagrange, and the point number. So for the Kerbin moon system, they would be L1, which is L1, right. L1 would be about here, between Kerbin and the moon. L2 would be about there, on the other side of the moon from Kerbin. L3 would be basically opposite the moon, the other side of Kerbin from the moon. And then there's L4 and L5, and they're weird ones. They are about there and about there. And I think we're just gonna get our maneuver set up. But yeah, L4 and L5 are interesting points in any system because the orbits around those points are much more stable than orbits around any L1, 2, or 3 points. So L4 and L5 are very desirable for a number of reasons that I won't really go into. But yeah, so we're actually back to our. Oh, yes, ha! I can plan missions. Yeah, that just why. Right, I knew that. Oh, gotta deploy our solar panels. Ooh, boy, did I catch that in time. Holy crap. Alright, we want KBN 1-1. We want KBN 1-2. Sorry, 1-3. Got it. Alright. And we want active vessel. Alright. Whew. That was very nearly very, very bad. Whew. As one of my subscribers said, very near, or I was nearly an oops. We don't like oopses. Oopses are bad. Alright, so now that now that isn't gonna, just go derelict on us. Oh boy. Alright, so the point of this mission is to deploy communication satellites at L3, which should be here, L4, and L5. And they will talk to each other, and they will talk to nearby satellites, and that will be good, and things will happen, and, hooray. Can't believe that almost happened. Alrighty. So in a similar vein to the earlier Kom-Net, we're not too concerned about being perfectly accurate, especially because we're going to refine our orbit tomorrow and then deploy from that orbit. So we don't need to be crazy accurate, but what we're looking for is semi-major axis of 12 million exactly, or 12 megameters. Let's see here. So we're going to deploy our satellites at L3, L4, and L5. They will all talk to each other. It will be great. There are the satellites. They are upgraded. They're bigger. They're better. They're more capable than our little Mark 1s. These are the Mark 2s, of course, because, wouldn't make sense to go right to Mark 3s. But anyway, yeah, we're in our orbit. Our semi-major axis is adequately accurate, and we can actually simulate a little bit, and I'll show you. You'll see, if you're quite eagle-eyed, that we're not really moving relative to the moon. We are orbiting at same height, same speed. We're in the same orbit. But because moon doesn't exert any gravitational influence on us, it's not perturbing our orbit. Our orbit isn't changing, so we'll stay like that forever. And that's why I say that anything on the same orbit as another body, outside that body's sphere of influence, is effectively, it in factly, it is a de facto Lagrange point, even if it is not a I don't even know how even if it's not a proper Lagrange point, it is a de facto Lagrange point. But anyway, that has been today's video. So tomorrow we will we'll refine our orbit. We'll get into we'll be aiming to we'll manipulate our orbit such that we wind up at L3, and then we will deploy our various satellites, and we will move them. They will move independently to L4 and L5. But anyway, that will do us for today. I have been Fox. This has been KSP. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. Hope to see you next time. Take care.